Well, I thought it was about time I updated my 1 week quarantine method and talk about some of the tweaks I've done over the years. It's been quite a few years since I posted that, and it's still a good method, but I just wanted to clear up some of the questions I've gotten over YouTube and show you what I do. Now, as you see, I pulled this kind of a plastic draw set. It's got 4 of these 2-gallon draws in it, and really it's just nice because I can fill them halfway and have perfectly 1 gallon. This is good for small fish. For bigger fish I would use a 5-gallon tank, or if you need a 10-gallon tank. But I like using the 1-gallon tank, or I should say the 2-gallon tank filled up halfway, because with 1 gallon any treatment would take a full dose for just the 1 gallon, so you don't use as much medication. So what I want to do is go through the basic elements and steps that I use to quarantine my fish using the 1 week method. And the 1 week method, I will say right off, is basically to eliminate the most common cause for fish to be sick, and that's cryptoceratin irritants, are commonly known as ick. And it's to encourage, really, aquarists who don't normally quarantine, because the barrier of setting up a whole new tank, cycling it through, keeping it going, and having a 10-20 gallon tank, always it's another tank to maintain, keep the water quality up, and just for the sake of being for hospitalization and quarantine, is kind of, to me, has been my experience with talking to other aquarists why they don't quarantine. And it's a shame, because you can have beautiful fish that are never get sick if you go ahead and quarantine each and every one. And it's a terrible thing, and I'm not saying I haven't experienced, I'm saying it through experience, having prize fish that you had for years and losing them because you didn't want to quarantine, and it goes a new fish goes in and takes out everything. So we don't want that to happen. At minimum, you could use this 1 week thing and you would take care of the most common problem, which is ick. Now, if you're concerned about marine velvet and some of the other diseases that are not so common, then you're going to have to quarantine for a full month in a larger aquarium. I don't ever do that. I've never had any trouble over the past decades until recently with not marine velvet, but worms and external parasites and flukes and that kind of thing. And that was because I collected my own fish here in Florida, and I got a queen angelfish. Looked beautiful, did great through the quarantine period. I think I even went over my 1 week method and went almost 2 weeks, and it looked great. But he had some kind of internal, some kind of fluke or something, which eventually took him out and a couple of my other prize fish. So when I collect now, I'm going to use different methods of handling the fish immediately after collecting. But that's another story. I do want to add to my method that I posted before a medication that I use now for during the quarantine time for worms. Now, if your fish is eating vigorously and seems healthy as far as being an aggressive eater, and yet never gains weight and gets thinner and thinner, the problem is worms. And my chalk bass, which is in here, had worms. I treated it for worms and successfully cured him and got him in the tank, and he's been in there for months now beautifully. And the treatment I use for that is Prazipro by Hikari, and I just started using this stuff, and I plan on now going through my method using this. And so the instructions say to treat for 5 to 7 days, and that pretty much will take care of any worms. And so in that case, that works perfectly for my 1 week method, as long as I dose my quarantine container with the appropriate dose of PraziPro. Not only am I targeting the most common problem of ick through this method, but I also will take care of any internal worms that I'm not able to see, or flukes, or what I'm not able to visually see during that 1 week. So it's probably, in my mind, it's good practice now to always treat all new fish for internal worms. And it's easy to do, and so why not do it? So we'll talk about really what I'm doing and how to go about it. Is I'm using this this set of drawers here, which I can see. This is a 2-gallon container. I fill it halfway, giving me 1 gallon. That way, any medications that go in, if I do see ick and I put copramine, and let's say copramine instruction says 1 drop per gallon, then every time I do 100% water change, I know to redose at 1 drop, or whatever the proper dose is for 1 gallon. It's a simple matter of, if you're using a 5-gallon, 10-gallon, you would just completely dose a full dose, whatever. But let's go through the cycle first, let's go through the method first of what needs to be done. I do like to set up this set right next to my main aquarium. That way any new fish is going to be acclimated with the main aquarium water, because I'm going to fill this up to 1 gallon with my main aquarium water, acclimate my fish into that, and then he's already acclimated, so at the end of 7 days I'm continually using the main aquarium water. He can go right in without having to worry about acclimation. So then it's all a matter of quarantine from that point on. First day, he's in the acclimated and in the main aquarium water. Then I'm going to give it the dose of PraziPro. So if he has any internal worms, he'll get that dose as well. I don't bother dosing for ick at all unless I see spots, because the method itself should break the cycle. Now if you take a look at the original video I put out on the 1 week method, I'll have a link below. It goes through the cycle and why it breaks the cycle. Basically, there's a free Cryptocarians has a free swimming stage and a stage where it's the trophin stage or whatever that is on the substrate, and then it goes from substrate to free swimming to being on a host fish to back again. And so all you need to do is break that cycle and the disease can't last. So we do that by I usually don't do it every day, but on like every other day I'll do 100% water change. Now before I do that, the first day I start to bring the salinity down until I get to hyposalinity. So by the second day I'm getting close to hyposalinity, or I'm getting the salinity at least halfway down between well, on the specific gravity 0.0024 to I'm sorry 1.024 to 25 to down to 1.015. If I got my numbers wrong, I apologize, but eventually by the second or third day I'll get it down to hyposalinity. I don't like to get right too close, because if your instrument for measuring specific gravity is off a little bit, then you can get below hyposalinity, which means your fish isn't able to survive in that fresh of a water. So just get it down pretty low without getting it to the exact level. That is the one thing that is one of the methods that's being used to knock out any Cryptocarians, and it's very effective. Just that alone. But on the third day now, I'm going to do 100% water change. Once again, using main aquarium water and fresh water to get it at the same specific gravity and salinity as it was when before I did the change, redosing with the PraziPro. What's nice about the PraziPro is that it works in freshwater and marine water, so it's good for saltwater and freshwater fish. So even at hyposalinity, you can check the instructions, make sure you get the right doses or whatever. But then you can dose again to continue the weekly dose of this. Of course, during this method, it's all about breaking the cycle. So doing 100% water change, if any cryptocaricins or ick that was coming off the fish throughout that, because there's going to be different stages of cycle, and they were free swimming or on the substrate, I've just removed them with 100% water change. They're completely gone now. And then bringing back the fish and giving the next few days for any more to come off from different stages of the cycle. You continually break it every other day, changing the water that way. And then by that point, if the fish is clean looking, I start to slowly raise. Now, when you are going down, you can get it down. I can almost get it down in 1 or 2 days. Raising it back up may take you the rest of the 3 to 5 days that you have remaining in the 1 week method. The 1 week method means pretty much at least 5 days, usually 7 days of quarantine time, and then the fish go to the main tank. That way, if I have to deal with a disease or any problems, or particularly with the fish getting comfortable and eating, I will put a piece of plastic PVC or something in there so they have some hiding shelter area. But I can do up to actually 4 fish with 4 of these things I have at this unit, and then I'll go get more containers if I need. But I don't really normally quarantine more than 1 or 2 fish at a time. So what I like to do, instead of netting my fish, when my fish is ready to go back into the aquarium, if they're small enough, I'll capture them in the small cup, or if they're a little bigger, I'll try to capture them in the big cup, so I'm not actually netting the fish. I'm just kind of, in fact, in a small, that's another nice thing about this small container. The benefits of the small container is they're easy to capture. You can use a cup, trap them in the cup, drain out as much water as possible. Even give them 100% freshwater dip. That's always nice to do too. I usually do that in the first few days when I'm doing 100% water change. In order to do the 100% water change, I pull my fish out in a cup or a larger cup depending, and then put them in 100% fresh water. Clean the container out thoroughly, and even get a new container that's dry and put the one that was just used away to dry, and then put the nice clean new one in, match it with the aquarium water, and then don't let the marine fish stay in 100% fresh water for more than 5 minutes. After 7 minutes you kill them, but usually 5 minutes will, that's like the third thing you're going to do to knock out any kind of parasites. So one thing is you're doing the hyposalinity. Second thing is you're doing 100% water change, which breaks the cycle. And third thing is you do a freshwater dip, and that will knock out anything, pretty much anything that's actually exposed. It doesn't do so good on the any parasites that are up in the gills, but it's definitely like what I call the 1, 2, 3 punch: hyposalinity, 100% water change, and then freshwater dip. Really knocks everything out. And then on top of it, using the Prozi Pro to get an internal parasites, you're pretty much going to have a clean fish, unless you have one of those rare problems like marine velvet or one of the other things that we don't normally hear about too often. If you're getting clownfish, you're more likely to have marine velvet, so you may want to treat them differently than this method. So I don't really recommend this method so much for clownfish, but for most fish, it's not 100% guaranteed bulletproof, but it's pretty good. I've gotten years using this method and having beautiful fish without any problems, and until, like I just said, I had the queen angelfish come in and I lost a bunch because of that external parasite. But back to it, the we're on the 7th day and you know your fish looks good. Oh, the other benefit I wanted to mention was, while they're in these small containers and you have a little plastic PVC pipe or any kind of thing for them to hide out in, you can try different foods and find out what foods he likes best, and you can target feed him and get him as strong as possible, and then you can squeegee out any food easily from this size container that it is not eating. And if you have multiple fish that you quarantine at once, I only do one in the container for each container, and that way I'm only dealing with any cycle of disease for that particular fish individually. But then, like I said, at the very end, when I'm ready to put them in the main aquarium, I'll scoop them out again in a cup that's at the right size for the fish, and then I can drain off the cup, or even put them in fresh water if I want, and then for another few minutes. Really not necessary on the last day though. And then just pour them in the tank, and you get very little bad water, and he'll go right in the tank. He's already acclimated because he's been in the main aquarium water all week, and it's phenomenal. I've enjoyed using this method because it's easy to use. I don't have to keep this going all the time. I'm not having a lot of the struggles of trying to worry about whether or not the nitrates or ammonia levels are too high. Don't even have to think about that, because they're only going to be in the water that they're in for 2 days at the most before I do another 100% water change. So I never have to worry about the water levels of ammonia and nitrates. If you have a big fish, you're going to want to use a 5 or 10 gallon or larger, because they will produce more ammonia, and you may want to be a little bit more careful about that. But that's a little bit about how I've tweaked. Really, this is the tweak to knock out most of the problems that we come across with marine fish, and still be able to get a good method. So hopefully that helps some of you and answers some questions. Some of the questions that were posted over the few years. I've had the 1 week video up, and yeah, I know there's issues where there are other diseases, but to me that's a low risk. But you do have that week to observe your fish, and if you at any time don't feel like he's ready, you take it another week, or if you want, take it a full 30 days. Some people like to take it at 6 to 8 weeks. I don't. I have been very successful over the years with this method. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and it was good getting back and seeing you again, and catch you next time.